Right then, drive check. No guard. Oh, okay then. First check. Crit to Vanguard, power to rear. Crit Van, power rear. Crit Van, power rear. Oh, damn. You got me. GG's, bro. Oh, yeah. GG's.
Hey Doku, you happy about that triple crit? You think you're hot shit now, huh? Think you don't need your grade 3 rear guards to win the game?
Alden, I'm sorry. I wanted to, but...
Why are you looking left right now? Is it because you didn't treat us right?
Huh? No, what?
And now you're looking right, because you left us to rot?
Alden, no. Please, Alden.
And now you're looking down, because you fucked up.
I just wanted to check a grade 3 for you guys.
And now you're looking up, crying because you let me down.
Triple driver. First check. I didn't get a grade 3. Triple drive. Where am I going? Get rid of your counterblast. I don't fucking get it! Triple driver. First drive check, get to draw trigger. Power go to out and draw cards. Second check, third check, where the fuck? I hate this deck! Welcome back to Yellow Card Vanguard. I'm your host, Toku, once again with a new overExplained for the DBT-04 Awakening of Chakrabarti set, featuring one of my favorite ride lines in Bastion, and his new grade 4 unit, Bastion Prime. Now, Bastion has always been a forerunner in the meta of the D format since its release, with the deck's incredibly aggressive game plan focused around grade 3s. One of the key role players in the deck being Alden is effectively a pot of greed on legs. Really big legs, like Olympic biker legs kinda jacked. Now, although as stated before, Bastion was generally constantly in the top tier of the D format. With the release of DBT-04, however, all the other ride lines also got their grade 4 units, and at the same time, ramped up in power very much so. Whereas, Bastion, though also getting some very much needed offensive prowess, is still where it's at on its defensive end of things and leaves it very susceptible to the new firepower that the newly upgraded decks will bring. As such, I personally believe that Bastion has kind of fell behind the curve, but it is still very powerful, still boasting some very strong effects other decks would love to have, be it multi-attack, huge power columns, extra drives, and extra draw. Now with the introductory spiel out of the way, once again, overExplained is my video series where I aim to take one deck or concept and break it down to its simplest molecules. I will quite literally overExplain everything about it, the niche applications, the obvious applications. I'll even read out the card for you. If, by the end of this video, you aren't sick of my voice or at least know Bastion Prime like the back of your hand, I have failed you. But first, a message from our beloved sponsor, Strictly Broken TCG, where you go for your Bushiroad card game needs. As of this video, DBT-04 should now be fully available, and where else to get your new beautiful grade 4s, such as Seraph Purelight, Mahara Nirvana, Bastion Prime, Unrivaled Lovely Bruce, and even the new and upcoming contender, Magnolia Elder. You can use my discount code SBTCGTOKU to save 5% off of any Bushiroad products site-wide. Once again, that's SBTCGTOKU for 5% off any Bushiroad product site-wide. And now, back to the video. So as usual, we are going to start with an over-explanation of the deck list. Starting from the top, we have the cover boy of this deck, this concept, and that is Apex Surpassing Sword Bastion Prime. Contrary to the Bastion paradigm of grade 3 focus, Bastion Prime is actually a grade 4, and unlike the original Bastion, Bastion Prime comes equipped with not twin drive, but triple drive, where you get to check 3 cards instead of 2. Though a grade 4, Bastion Prime still only has 13k. Bastion Prime has 2 abilities, both focused on being your vanguard, which means that he's in the center circle of your front row. The first one states that during your turn, all of your front row units gain 2k, and the second, at the end of the battle, your drive check revealed a grade 3 or greater card. You can discard a Bastion named card from your hand, or from your soul, you can detach a Bastion named card to the drop zone to restand all of your grade 3 rear guards. All of them, and they'll all gain 10k power. The first effect seems kind of lukewarm, as this doesn't make any magic numbers with just your front row. The 2k doesn't make any big difference. However, when you introduce grade 3 boosters, your columns will be on average 28k, which is magic numbers. Let's go, baby! That's what I'm talking about. Couple this with his second ability that we can restand all of our grade 3 rearguards, we're making double use of our boosters and double use of our attackers to get a lot of good usage out of power on the board. The second ability, however, is fairly hyper-specific, and outside of your initial turn on Bastion Prime, being able to Soul Blast a Bastion you roll from the ride deck, you will need to value your other found Bastions carefully. The next card to feature is Apex Ruler Bastion. This Bastion is also the grade 3 we choose to run in our ride line. As he is grade 3, he has 13k Twin Drive, which means we only check 2 cards on our drive checks, but Bastion also comes equipped with 2 similar effects to Bastion Prime on the Vanguard Circle. Similarly to Prime, during your turn, all of your grade 3 units gain 2k. The big difference here is that Bastion Prime gives all grade 3 units and not just the front row. Bastion also has the effect that at the end of the battle your drive check revealed a grade 3, discard any card to stand any rearguard and give it 10k for the turn. Very similar to Bastion Prime, but half of its full potential, which is why we only see 1 horse on Bastion and 2 horses on Bastion Prime. In comparison to Bastion Prime, Bastion's 2k buff makes very good magic numbers when going first, being able to buff your grade 3 attackers to 15k rather than 13k, which then makes your opponent have to expend more cards in hand to successfully guard. This helps put the damage disparity in your favor and puts your opponent on the back foot. Bastion also has this very cool icon right here under the Twin Drive icon, and this is a Persona Ride icon, which means that if you were to ride the same copy of Bastion over this Bastion, you can draw a card and have all of your front row units gain 10k for the turn, even new ones that appear and even ones that aren't there yet. With our vanguards now fully introduced, let's take a look at our grade 3 rearguards. First on the runway is our very beloved Grand Heavenly Sword, Alden. A very common theme in this video will be all of our grade 3s having Twin Drive and the Persona Ride icon, but the Persona Ride icon not very relevant in this deck since we won't look to ride into either of these units ever. Alden is a 13k attacker and has 2 very strong rearguard centric effects. 1. When placed on the rearguard circle, be it from deck, from hand, or even from prison, you can pay the cost to Counterblast 2, Soul Blast 1 to call a card from your hand to the rear circle, and if the card you called was a grade 3, draw 2. Draw 2. Fucking draw 2 new cards from the top of your deck. Alden also on attack gains 5k until the end of turn. If you have 3 or more grade 3 units, Alden also on attack gains 5k until the end of turn if you have 3 or more grade 3 units. Let's break down Alden and why he's so amazing. Draw 2. On a body. Yes, it costs 2 counterblasts, but in this list, you're barely using your counterblast, so it can all be funneled into Alden. The majority of your deck is grade 3, so it is very easy to get that condition as well. He's also a self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense. Between himself, Bastion Vanguard, and whichever other grade 3 you call out, those are the 3 grade 3s you need for his 5k buff for the turn. Let's also not forget that this buff is for the turn and not just for the battle, so when he restands and reattacks again from either Bastion skill, he gains another 5k if the condition is still met. If possible, mulligan for this card. The next grade 3 rearguard is introduced in DBT04 as well, Heavenly Arrow of Sure Hit Sparare. Sparare is also a grade 3, has 13k power and no shield value. It is another common trait between all of our grade 3s you will see is that they won't have any shield value, so it shouldn't be needed to be repeated in the next few cards. Sparare has 2 different rearguard effects depending on which row he's fighting from. In the front row, When he is stood by your Vanguard's ability, we can Soul Blast 2 cards to draw 1 card back, and in the back row, during our turn, all of the other rearguards in the same column, usually that's just the one that's in front of him, will gain 5k. Sporare is a very versatile rearguard. If you need some more hand, he's the best target to restand with our first turn with Bastion to get that Soul Blast 2 draw 1. As because we Soul Blast very little in this deck, we can have Sporare siphon our soul. Yes, on average, the card we draw won't have much guard value, but because of how important it is to draw into extra copies of Bastion, find our Bastion Prime, and any other important pieces, the extra draw does help a lot. Ideally, going into grade 3, Alden calls Sporares to draw 2. Then restand the Sporare is a lot of hand advantage and can carry you into the latter stages of the game. Sporare in the back row is also very deceptively strong. Even while unable to boost, he still acts as a restanding 5k booster. Since the power is continuous and can give that restood unit that permanent 5k, and once he is able to boost, ooh mama, that's a lot of power. Also a card that you'd like to mulligan for, but once again, Alden is the #1 priority. Our next grade 3 unit isn't exactly what I'd call a rearguard, but a grade 3 unit all the same. What's unique about Heavenly Protection Dragon Embrace Dragon is that, just like all the other grade 3s, it has no shield, but only 12k power instead of 13k. Embrace Dragon, if the name Heavenly Protection didn't hint towards it, instead of having shield, actually possesses a strong ability to act as a guardian. When you put Embrace on the Guardian Circle, you can choose one of your grade 2 or greater units being attacked, and it gains 10k for the battle. And if you chose a grade 4, it gains 20k instead. So in the early game, while you're on grade 2 or you've just rolled up to Bastion, Embrace Dragon acts as a 10k shield, and once you ride into Bastion Prime, acts as a 20k shield instead. Embrace Dragon is a very much welcome inclusion of guard into this deck filled with grade 3s. The 12k power is a very sad number, however. It doesn't make magic numbers anywhere, so rarely will you ever want to call it out to attack or to boost with, as the 10 or 20k shield helps more. The next grade 3 is one of my favorites in one of the slots that are currently in contention, honestly, and that is Knight of Broad Axe Refluke. A 13k body played for his very strong buff effect. An axe skill, while on the rearguard circle, you can put Refluke into your soul to give one of your grade 3 rearguards 10k for the turn. It's very simple, but also very strong. At first glance, it's ooh, 10k buff, your 15k Sporare swings for 25k, ooh. But when you realize that it's basically turning itself into a booster without boosting, and the fact that the 10k is doubly used if we hit the restand, that's 20k worth of power from one card in hand and gaining a soul to use as well. Refluke is insane, and this is a hill that I'm willing to die on. The next grade 3 in our main deck isn't a unit per se, it is an order. Pride to Protect. Pride to Protect is a set order rather than a normal order, so consider it like a field spell if you will. Once activated, it stays on your side of the field in the order zone and continually gives an effect. This one's continual effect is that all of our grade 3 rearguards get the ability to boost. Boosting is just basically being able to give its power from the back row to the unit in front of it for the battle. So what's the purpose of this card? While this card is active, it just makes your turns that much more threatening. Your extra grade 3s have no guard value in hand, so why not slam them down and use them for boosters too? Couple this with Bastion Prime, and not only are your attackers gaining an extra 10k, but your boosters as well, effectively giving your 4th and 5th attack an extra 20k worth of power in their respective columns. So everyone, those were our grade 3s in the main deck. Let's go ahead and take a look at the grade 2s in our main deck. With the grade 2s out of the way, let's take a look at the grade 1s in our main deck. We only play 4 grade 1s in our main deck, and that is Aegis Mare Dragon. This grade 1 card has 6k power and the ability to boost. The boost is seldom used, but sometimes comes up due to RNG. Aegis Mare also has a special 0 guard value shield. That is because Aegis Mare is a Sentinel, a card type restricted to only 4 copies in your deck. This Sentinel has the ability that when it is put on the Guardian Circle, you can choose one of your units and it cannot be hit until the end of the battle. If your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand and discard it. This is colloquially known as what is called a perfect guard, and to further explain the second part of its effect, It means that after it's placed on the Guardian Circle, if you have one or less card in hand afterwards, you don't need to pitch for the effect anymore, basically gaining a lot of value as you get into a tighter pinch. We obviously do play this card because in a deck like Bastion, which doesn't really herald itself on its strong defensive capabilities, a perfect guard is just what is needed to convert some of our dead grade 3s in hand into shield value. Now let's take a look into the triggers, our grade 0 units. The first one is the Blade Feather Dragon, a grade 0 unit with 15k shield value and the ability to boost. You also see in the top right of the card an icon of a star. That is what is called a critical trigger. What a critical trigger does is when drive checked or damage checked, increases the damage dealt by one of your units by 1 for the turn, as well as give one of our units 10k for the turn as well. Blade Feather Dragon only has 4k power, but in return has an ability. On the rearguard circle, at the end of the battle that it boosted, you can put it into soul and give one of your units 2k until the end of the turn. Honestly, a very meh effect, and I think you can appreciate it more as a way to get emergency soul if you need it. But choosing to lose 15k shield in hand in a deck like Bastion is very, very questionable. One might respect the fact that going into grade 2 and attacking into a grade 2 Vanguard, the 2k boost it gives could give one of your grade 3 attacks that extra 2k power needed to hit magic numbers. Apart from that very, very niche specific scenario, not very much uses cases outside of being a critical and having 15k shield. The next grade 0 unit is Knight of Heavenly Hammer Gurgant. Just like Blade Feather Dragon, Gurgant is a grade 0 with 15k shield value and the ability to boost. As you can see in the top right, Gurgant also has a critical trigger. In exchange of not having an effect, however, Gurgant has 15k power instead, which, compared to Blade Feather, boosts for better numbers in context of grade 3 rearguards. On to our next set of triggers. This is Protection Magic Purorobi. Purorobi is a grade 0 unit with only 5k natural shield. Just like all of our other grade 0s, has the ability to boost as well. Purorobi only has 4k however, which indicates she must have an ability, and of course, she does. Hers is that when the opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, Purorobi provides an extra 5k shield value, totaling 10k shield. We also notice a new icon in the top right. This is a draw icon, meaning when it's drive checked or damage checked, we can draw one extra card from the top of our deck and give one of our units 10k for the turn. Going into another playset of normal triggers, introducing Healer of Heavenly Staff Arches. A very, very green card, including the icon we see at the top, a heal icon, indicating that this card is a heal trigger, meaning that when we drive check this card or damage check this card, if our current damage is equal to or more than our opponent's, we can heal 1 damage from our damage zone and put it to the drop zone. We also give one of our units 10k for the turn, too. Arches also has 15k shield and 5k power with the ability to boost, but is most prominent for that heal trigger. Finally, the last card in our main deck, the 16th trigger, and a type of card we can only run one copy of, and that is the Overtrigger. In our list, our Overtrigger is Light Dragon Deity of Honors Amartanoa. One of the first things to notice about this is the icon. It gives not 10,000 power, but 100 million power. This is the Overtrigger power. Overtriggers have the effect that when revealed for your drive or your damage check, after giving that 100 million power to a unit, it removes itself from the game and the player draws 1. We can also see that Amartanoa also has 50k shield as well, but most importantly, has the additional effect, which only applies when you check it on the drive check, and that is, until the end of the turn, we also perform drive checks for the battles that our rearguards attack. So what does this mean in specifically our Bastion deck? In a deck so focused around grade 3 rearguards, it means that our grade 3 rearguards can also perform their own twin drives on the turn we trigger Amartanoa. That's a lot of hand advantage. Then we introduce our ride line. What a ride line is, it is a separate 4-card deck outside of our main deck, but part of the entire entity called the deck, where we can have our first Vanguard, our grade 1, our grade 2, and our grade 3. To ride into the next grade from our ride line, we have to discard 1 from hand. In return, however, we get guaranteed consistency on what we look to ride into so as not to be grade stuck. Our first Vanguard is Knight of Heavenly Bow Base. He is grade 0 with 5k shield and 6,000 power, but those values have little use cases. Base's main effect is that when rode upon, if you went second, draw a card. Now, despite having that effect, we do want to go first to abuse Bastion's 2k buff to hit magic numbers on a grade 3 turn. But being able to get an extra draw as well as the ability to get the first drive check of the fight does help in playing catch up. The grade 1 in our ride line is Knight of Heavenly Sword Fort. He is our grade 1, comes with 5k shield and 8k power, has an effect that when he is rode upon by specifically the ride line grade 2 Rooks, you can pay the cost, which is to reveal 2 grade 3 cards from your hand and reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a unit card, call it to the rearguard circle, otherwise put it into the drop if it isn't. Read if it was an order. Fort also has an act skill on the rear circle to once per turn, counterblast 1 and give one of our grade 3 vanguards 5k for the turn. Mainly played for the first effect to get an RNG plus to the board, we never ever touch the second effect. Next in our grade 2 ride line is the aforementioned Knight of Heavenly Speared Rooks. Similar to Fort, has an ability when rode upon the next specific piece of the ride line, in his case, Apex Ruler Bastion, to pay the cost, which is to reveal 3 grade 3s in hand to draw 1 card. Also has an ability to boost for 15k power during our turn while we have 3 or more grade 3 units. Similar to Fort, only ever played for its first skill to get a +1 as we go through the ride line. But the second effect isn't anything to scoff at either. 15k boosting a grade 3 rearguard is magic numbers, and if it weren't for the fact that Bastion and Bastion Prime were so restricted to focusing on so much grade 3 rearguards, Rooks would have been nice to have. Finally, the last piece of our ride line, a familiar face, Apex Ruler Bastion. I don't need to run over him again as we've already over-explained him at the beginning, but just know that he is our guaranteed grade 3 ride, and the fact that he's guaranteed is very, very welcome. Now, this is my list. Let's also take a look at some other options one could run. This card up here is Heavenly Shock of Distinction Ragrial, a grade 3 unit with twin drive, 13k power, and no shield. It has a very, very unique rearguard effect, and that is when it attacks a vanguard, you can counterblast 2 and rest any number of your other rearguards, and until the end of the battle, he performs drive checks and gains 5k. At the end of the battle then, it checks if you've rested 3 or less units for the cost, you discard 3. And if you rested 1 or less units for the cost, you discard an extra 2 cards as well. All in all, meaning if you rested 1 or less units, you must discard 5 cards afterwards. If you rested 3 or less, only 3. So the ideal number of rearguards to rest for his effect is 0, 2, or 4. Consider running Ragriel if you find that you need another strong attacker and another way to dump your counterblast into. If the resources allow for it, you can get a lot of drive checks using Ragriel alongside Bastion Prime since he's not once per turn. It's also a very good final gambit for your final turn when you know that you won't live another turn, so you may as well full send it and discard all the cards in your hand to get multiple drive checks, multiple attacks. This card is Heavenly Blade of Oath Freeant. Once again, a grade 3 unit with twin drive, 13k power, and no shield. Freeant has 2 rearguard centric effects. First one checks that while our vanguard is Bastion Prime, during our turn Freeant gains 5k power. Secondly, when stood by your card effect, if the opponent is grade 3 or greater, Freeant gains 5k. A very solid attacking unit, plays a similar role to Alden in gaining that 5k when we stood by either Bastion or Bastion Prime. Couple this with his first buff when on Bastion Prime and you get a very, very respectable unit. Consider running Freeant if you find that you appreciate what Alden can do on his attacks, and having a 5th to 8th copy of a very strong attacker is welcome. Let's not forget that his ability isn't very restricted to just being in the front row, so he could definitely act as a 23k booster as well to your front row units if that ever comes up. Speaking of boosters, the next option is Darkstrain Dragon. 13k power, twin drive, and no shield, blah blah blah. What Darkstrain does do is play a similar role to Pride to Protect, having an act skill while on the rearguard that when we have 3 or more grade 3 units, we can Soul Blast 2 and all grade 3 units gain boost until the end of the turn. Darkstrain conflicts with both Sparare and Pride to Protect, giving the same effect that Pride Protect does, and competing with Sparare's Soul Blast as well. So you could consider running Darkstrain to save slots in the deck by cutting both Pride to Protect and Sparare. The only differing factor being that Darkstrain will have to continually pay its cost to gain the boost, and in Bastion Prime, where you don't actually re-ride for Persona rides that much as the major game plan, you actually do not gain too much soul, and outside of Reflux have not a lot of good soul charge effects. Still, you might respect the fact that Darkstrain would replace 2 slots in your deck and then give you 1 more card option to run instead. Another popular order to run is Form Up O Chosen Knights, a grade 3 normal order that based on the number of grade 3 units you have, after paying the cost of Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, if you have 2 or more grade 3 units, one of your units gains 5k until the end of the turn. If you have 3 or more grade 3 units, you draw a card. And if you have 4 or more grade 3 units, one of your vanguards gains Drive +1 until the end of turn. A very strong card in a vacuum, being an order that does more than just replace itself, but actually pluses to hand due to the extra drive. A very strong option to run if you opt to run a grade 3 lineup more so focused on board presence to ensure that you'll always get the +1 that this order provides. Lastly, let's talk about another grade 0 you could run. Bard of Heavenly Song Alpaca. A grade 0 unit with 15k shield boost and only 4k power. Once again, a new trigger icon, and this is a front trigger, meaning when revealed on your damage or drive check, it gives all of your front row units 10k power for the turn. She also has the effect, if the opponent's vanguard is grade 3 or greater, acts as a 20k shield. Consider running Alpac if you find that your guard values are a bit lacking still. On the topic of grade 0 triggers, let's once again take a look at my trigger lineup. Notice that I have opted to not run Alpac for that much desired extra shield, and that's because, to put it simply, crits kill people. That's why I've opted to run 8 criticals over rainbow triggers to play defensively. My reasoning is, Bastion as a deck is very spec'd into the offensive aspect, and playing more criticals makes your large power columns much more threatening, being able to deal that extra damage and being that much more harder to guard. Whereas opting towards the Alpac gives us more defensive powers when we have the front trigger in hand to guard with. But why are we playing to not lose rather than to win then? We already know that Bastion doesn't perform well on the back foot, so keep on the pressure and keeping on the aggression with these critical triggers is my philosophy to winning. As for why the draws over the fronts, it's because the percentage increase in checking the draw triggers to help draw into important pieces for our big blowout turns was too important to pass up. Okay, and that's the breakdown of the deck. Let's go ahead and overthink, overexplain, and overtrigger in some games. So heading into our first game here, we're going to go ahead and offer the heads and tails. Obviously, we do want to go first, and unfortunately that will not be the case. We will be going second, going up against Dark States. Now, because of how the game is, not always seeing the desired devil as a starter very signifies that he's playing Greedon. But it is a good guess here. Going to their opening hand, I do see some grade 3s in the PG. Because we are going second into a Dark States deck, I might want to actually hold on to the PG here. Spiralia is good to find, Refluke is good to find. So I'll send the other 2 back, and hopefully I find an Alden off the top. Very nice to see. Go ahead and shuffle back up, and we will pass to our opponent here. So, hoping to keep this heal in hand, actually, to use as a guard for other turns. And first, riding to the Deep Sonicra. So this kind of introduces me to believe that we are going to be playing up against Baromagnes. So we'll draw for turn, and not exactly what we want to see. We want to keep our heals in the deck, especially going into a matchup like Baro, where we don't actually have, like, the best defensive capabilities, as we will lose most of our rear guards due to Baromagnes' skill. We're going to go ahead and swing with Fort here, doing our first drive check here. We do find a critical trigger. We're going to go ahead and deal a swift 2 damage to our opponent. Into the damage we see Brainwash, Swirler, and Selfish Engraver, 2 really good important pieces that I am very happy to see go into the damage zone. And then with that, we'll pass our pack to our opponent. Our opponent is then going to discard another copy of Selfish Engraver to ride from the ride deck, Electro Spartan. So Electro Spartan doesn't really do anything at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and over-trigger to pass. He does get the heal trigger, which is fine, but because it's going to be a lot harder for me to guard in the later stages of the game, I want to guard early while I can. I find another copy of Aegis Mare here. I think in that case, I'm going to keep the 2 PGs. Let's discard the Arches. The heal trigger, and we'll go into Rooks here. Using Fort's skill, I'm going to reveal 2 grade 3s from my hand, and off the top of my deck, I find a Bastion to call to the rearguard circle. Let's go into attacks here. I'm actually going to call Bastion to the front. Maybe I can cheese an over trigger, or maybe cheese some extra damage here. Find a 3rd copy of the Aegis Mare. That's very welcome to see, and with my last attack, I'll swing with Bastion, and I get a crit out of the deck and into the damage zone. Also very happy to see that as the Bastion player going into this turn as our opponent rides into the Baromagnes. So Baromagnes has the ability when it attacks counterblast when perform all the following according to the number of cards in the soul. 5 or more, draw a card, 10 or more, gain 10k and a crit. Now, with the new releases of the cards in DBT04, Baromagnes DBT03, Baromagnes does have the ability to actually soul charge quite a lot easily on its first turn. So at this moment, I am going to be fighting an uphill battle, and like with the release of like all the Desire Devils as well, specifically Gomon, the moment that Baromagnes attacks and with its ability being able to push a bunch of cards into the soul, including Gomon from the rearguard circle, it does put me on like a very hard. It does make it very hard for me to guard in like the later stages of the game. So while I'm here right now, if I can guard, I will guard. He's going to call down the Chegra on place of, depending on the number of soul that we have, perform the following. He's going to counterblast 1, discard a card to go ahead and filter a Brainwash Swirler back into the hand. Brainwash Swirler has a very strong effect when placed to soul charge 1, and every time that a soul is put into soul from soul charge, it gains 5k. So Brainwash Swirler gets really, really large, and that's something I'm not very excited to see. Now, I do have a PG in hand, and I actually do have most of the pieces I need. The Refluke is kind of extra, so if I'm really afraid of anything, I could offer the PG discarding the Refluke here. But it looks like I'm going to be very much aggressive, and it looks like he already gets the 10k and the crit. I think I'm okay with taking the initial attack here, so I will no guard here. This gives me the 2 counterblasts I need for ult and skill. Correct me, because I'm actually going to get 3 counterblasts because of that extra crit. First damage, second damage, third damage. Getting the defensive draw trigger very nice. Drawing the Bastion Prime off of it as well is very good to see. Cannot complain about that. This last attack here, even though it feels kind of wasteful, I will actually go ahead and PG. Now, in this matchup against Baromagnes, because I know that he will look to actually like suck up my entire board into the soul, Pride to Protect doesn't really do anything because I won't actually keep a lot of rearguards to boost with. So I'm going to go ahead and discard the Pride to Protect there. Passing it over to my turn, he has no counterblast left. I don't know if he has any more Selfish Engravers, but if he does, that makes it very scary for me to want to do anything. I think it's actually very unrealistic for me to try and attempt to damage deny him here, since the moment he does find a Selfish Engraver here, how many is he out? We only know of the 2, and I don't recall seeing it on the drive check here. So let's go ahead and draw for our turn. We do find a crit here. I want to keep the Bastion Prime. The Refluke goes into the soul. I think what we're going to do is try and do Alden, Spirale, keep the Bastion Prime for the next turn, and keep this for some guards. So we're going to discard the Refluke. Oh. Actually can't discard the Refluke, because I need 3 or more grade 3. So I have to discard the Disma to ride into Bastion. So this way I have the 3 grade 3s to draw a card. I do find another Refluke, which is good, but losing that 15k shield in hand, maybe there was an opportunity for me to discard the Bastion Prime and hopefully find another copy going forward. Now, between the Bastion from my ride deck, the 2 Bastion Primes we see at the moment, and the Bastion that we got off of Fort's Call, we don't have too much left in deck, so hopefully we are able to find something good, find some good shield value off of this call here. We're going to call Alden to the rear circle, use its skill to counterblast 2 Soul Blast 1 to call Spirale from hand. Because Spirale is a grade 3, we're going to go ahead and draw 2 cards. We find another Alden, we find a Perorobi, so that is some good shield value we are able to find there. And with the Bastion skill, all of our grade 3 units will gain 2k, so let's go ahead and pump everything up to 15. Now, this doesn't hit magic numbers at all, but I think we just need to put on the pressure here, because come the next turn, it becomes very hard for us to actually defend the Baromagnes turn. So we're going to go ahead and swing with Bastion to the Vanguard here. This is going to be 2 drive checks. Going to give us the heal trigger for a 2 to pass. We find the Bastion Prime and we find the Pride to Protect. So Pride to Protect, I think I might keep in hand because I can use it on the next turn if need be. This extra Bastion Prime, though, I can choose to discard because I don't think this game is going to go too long where I get 2 uses of the Bastion, especially with the fact that I'm out 2 heal triggers already. I'm going to go ahead and discard to resend this Spirale. Spirale is going to get 10k, and because it stood by my Vanguard's ability, I can Soul Blast 2 and draw a card. Finding another draw trigger. Not exactly jazzed about that, but I'm not exactly too upset about it either. Either way, let's go ahead and attack with Alden. We'll use its skill on attack to gain the power, and one more with Spirale to hit him to 5 damage. Now, it's pretty much make or break for him now, and it's also make or break for me. Luckily, I do have an Alden in hand, and I do have some more flukes out, and the Bastion Prime, and I do have a couple of PGs as well, so I'm not too worried. The only issue comes then is I will be taking a lot of damage, and if he does have the Desire Devil Gomon in hand, I will need a lot to guard with. So he does use Chegra to go ahead and filter his soul, grab another copy of Curtis from the soul, to go ahead and soul charge. That gives Brainwash Swirl that extra bonus power, calls down the Curtis again, another soul charge, and that hits us to that 15 soul that we need. There's that extra Selfish Engraver here. So I feel that I will have to end up taking at least one attack. If possible, I don't want to take the Baromagnes attack. We will use Pearl Ruby to guard here, and because our opponent is grade 3 or greater, this does gain that extra 5k shield. The next attack comes out from Chegra, and this is very large. I think I will have to actually take this attack. I don't find it defensive, and that is the last Bastion Prime in our deck. So with that, we have to win on our next turn, otherwise we are going to run very dry on our Bastions. So he's going to go ahead and use Baromagnes' skill here. This sucks up my regards as well, and this does get the 10k and the crit, going for the Selfish Engraver and going for the Gomon. So going for 2 attacks here. Now, he doesn't have the Garter Strike, so I'm going to use the Aegis Mare Dragon. We're going to discard the Pride to Protect, and this does guard this attack quite easily. Does not have the Gomon from ability to suck into soul. Actually it looks like he's actually thinking whether to pull the Desired Devil out or to go for something else, and he does choose to go for the Desired Devil here. So I will get to PG this attack here, and it doesn't look like he has any way to actually push the Desired Devil into soul on his own turn at the moment, but these 2 attacks do get very large. So he does find 2 cups of Baromagnes. That is good for me to say, because I know now that he doesn't have any guard value. I'm going to go ahead and take this attack, giving him the option to actually push the Selfish Graver into soul for the counter charge, which means that he doesn't have that 5k intercept. Did not soul charge a trigger as well, so there is a chance that he does find a 6 damage heal, but we have a pretty nice turn going into our next turn here. We're going to go ahead and call the Alden. We're going to Soul Blast the Spirale, calling out the Refluke to draw 2. Finds a Blade Feather Dragon. Now, we don't have anything to boost, but because I am going for the kill here, I'm going to call down both Reflukes, push everything into soul, and give 10k to the front rows very nice and easily, plus 2k from Bastion Prime skill, and let's just go to town. I'm going to first swing with... Actually, because this is final turn, why don't I make everything that much harder to guard? At this moment, this is only 25k to 13. 25k to 13 is very easily guarded by a trigger because the trigger is 15k. I'm actually going to go ahead and call down my triggers as well. This way, these make really nice numbers because I know that I'm dead on this next turn. I have to win on this turn, so I'm just going to go for it. So this is effectively 28 to my opponent, which makes it impossible for him to guard with just 1 trigger. So that's our first game. Good game to the Baromagnes player. I think just very fortunate that I was able to guard so early, so easily, and he wasn't able to get the Gomon out. Regardless, if he was able to get the Gomon out, I would have to guard that first attack a bit harder. And with that, I was able to get that win just because of Alden, all that aggressive power from the Bastion Prime skill. Let's go ahead and get into our next game. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the next game. It is once again going to be against Dark States once again. I'm going to offer the heads and tails, and just like as always, we are looking to go first here. So Sabre will declare heads again, and the coin flip says that once again we are going to go second, so we don't get that initial grade 3 rush that we are looking for, but we do get a lot of piece draw off of being able to go second from riding over base. Now this hand isn't exactly what I would call sparking joy. This Bastion Prime doesn't do much for us until we are able to get into Bastion. I think, like I said, it's most important for us to mulligan into the Alden. I will keep at least 1 Embrace Dragon just because it is a grade 3 for us. It's 2 grade 3s. So we are able to find 4 grade 3s and a Proto Ruby. Now I don't know what deck he's playing because I'm not sure if it's going to be Baromagnes again. But let's go ahead and find out based on what he's initially riding into. And that might give us a lot of decision on whether to discard the Pride to Protect or the Pororobi. And it looks like he will actually be playing Desire Devil Gomon in the right deck, which kind of indicates that he is playing Greedon. Because he's playing Greedon, my rear guards are kind of safe in the back row, so I am going to value Pride to Protect more. These both have similar shield value. The bonus of Embrace Dragon being a 10k shield. This is also a 10k shield, but this is also a grade 3. So I think what I'm going to do then is I'm going to discard the Pororobi to ride into the fort, drawing a card because I went second, and we're going to go ahead and instantly swing 8 to 8. Normally I always get a critical trigger here. It's going to happen again. It won't happen again, but I find an Alden, and that is really good to see. We're going to go ahead and pass it back to your opponent, and I do see the Greedon in the damage zone there. That's good to see. One less Persona ride, one less Greedon to have in the soul to make the opponent's lose con become 7. He's going to discard to ride into Bolshoku, and with this, he's going to go ahead and, it looks like reveal the Greedon from the right deck to draw a card. Now, just like before, my deck is not good at guarding, so I'm going to guard early while I can. The Counterblast will always come later, so I don't need to worry about Counterblast at this current moment. On to my turn, I'm going to draw. I'm thinking on what to discard for the ride line here. I already have one Sparare, and the Reflux will come later. I think I'm going to keep the 2 Spirales here because this is very important for us here. So I'm going to discard the Reflux to ride into the Rooks here. I'm going to show the Alden that he knows about, and I'm also going to show the Embrace Dragon. It's very important actually that when you reveal your grade 3s, you reveal stuff that your opponent already knows or doesn't know of. I'm not too jazzed about finding the heal trigger off the top here, but at least it works as a 5k booster worst case. It is better than finding the Pride to Protect off the top because that one just means you don't get any sort of plus at all. I'm going to head and attack the Vanguard with Rooks here, and off the top we find another Reflux. So I'm happy that I was able to discard the Reflux because I was able to drive check a new one here. Now I don't have any guard left, but our opponent is going to grade 3 and Greedon does attack twice. So with Greedon attacking twice, I'm probably going to get the 2 Counterblasts I need anyways off of its skill. So with that 2 Counterblast, I can once again go into the Alden, call the Spirale out. Depending on what I get on my hands, if I get like any defensive draws, if I get like really good cards to discard, like an extra copy of Pride to Protect, I can go ahead and actually use the Pride to Protect, discard the Pride to Protect, and actually get my grade 3s out onto the board early and just push him to that late damage. And just push him to like that very end stage damage very quickly. He's actually going to pull back and not give me that second counter charge. I can respect that. I'm going to no guard here. Now, if he does get the Dark States over trigger, I'm laughing because you're mandatory given your Vanguard that crit. So I'm only going to take 1 damage here. It is an Alden, and I think that's completely fine. So I have 1, 2, 3 Aldens out. I have 1 left in deck. I think, once again, because of how much damage I'm going to be taking, I think it's actually good to keep the Aldens in hand, and that way I'm able to convert them into like Alden into Alden. Whereas here, what I can do is I can discard a Spirale, to ride into Bastion, and then I can do Spirale, Reflux in the front row, attack 3 times, Spirale effect to go off and get a soul charge. Spirale effect to Soul Blast 2 to draw a card if the drive check does reveal a grade 3. Otherwise, all the power from the 2 triggers goes to Reflux. So, because I want to keep my Aldens in hand, the other idea would be called the Embrace Dragon, but like I said, this is better used as a guard. So yeah, let's go ahead and discard a Spirale to go into Bastion here. Now, he knows that I drove check a Reflux, he knows that I drove check an Alden from before, and I'm going to be calling the Spirale down anyway, so those are the 3 I'm going to reveal. I'm going to call down the Reflux, I'm going to call down the Spirale, and with Bastion skill, all of my grade 3 units gains that 5k power. I'm going to go ahead and first swing with Spirale here, 5 to guard from this very easy to guard attack. He actually ends up taking it, and I'm going to swing with Bastion. So this is 2 drives here. I'm hoping for a trigger and a grade 3. That is like the ideal thing to find off of Bastion. First is a grade 3, very nice to see, and the second is a trigger. Very nice to see. Because Spirale already gets a 10k off of Bastion skill, I'm actually going to give the power here to the Reflux. no defensive on that side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and discard a card. I don't have a Bastion Prime in hand, so this Bastion is very important for me to keep. I think I actually play aggressively, and I'll discard the heal to restand the Spirale, use its skill to draw a card, and we find another Spirale. I think that's completely fine as well, honestly, because now we have a really strong board going into our next turn, even if we don't find the Bastion Prime. We're able to get these really big boosts off of Spirale using Pride Protect, and I think that's like more than enough. Let's go ahead and attack one more time with Spirale here. This is going to ask for a trigger's worth of power to guard, and will our opponent guard? He does find the defensive trigger here, but luckily we did give the power to Refluke, so this does get guarded regardless whether he got the defensive trigger or not. So I'm happy to see him get the defensive trigger where it was like not very useful, so to say. He's going to go ahead and Persona Ride into Greedon, and because now that he has a Greedon in Soul, I need to deal 1 extra damage for me to win the game. I'm not sure how many heals are out of his deck, but I still have some of my heals in deck, but at this current time they won't be live. So he's going to call Kennen off the top, and Kennen actually calls off the Bubetsu. This is very good. He's able to get a lot of multi-attacks off this turn, and that's very, very scary to see. Gonna call a lot of Bubetsus, actually. So despite Greedon being very greedy and eating up all of his standing rear guards to get those attacks, I'm actually kind of fierce. I am actually kind of scared for myself because all of these Bubetsus can translate into extra attacks, and Greedon is not counterblast intensive at all, just soul. And with that, he does hit the 10 soul needed, and because of all of the Bolshokus in soul, this is a very large and in-charge dinosaur. The first attack I will take. I will save the PG for like another rainy day. First to, okay, so I get a crit trigger, Pride to Protect, and a draw trigger. I'm very happy to find that draw trigger. It finds us an Embrace Dragon, which is really good to see. Obviously, the only way that this could be better is if I top deck into a Bastion Prime, actually. That would be very good to see, but also very unrealistic. He's going to use Bubetsu to call a Kennen, as well as a Flinty Slasher, and Kennen is actually going to be able to use its skill. Oh no, not be able to use its skill, because that is only during the main phase. So, off of all of those Bubetsus, oh, this is not once per turn. So he has another chance. 48. He has a way to actually just attack me this many times now. He was able to get all the Bubetsus. This gets him to 12 soul. Soul lasts 2, get back to 10. And it gains another 15. If I was to hard guard anything, it would be now. So, here... unfortunately, because Embrace Dragon is only worth 10k shield at the moment, this is only a 1 to pass. And a 1 to pass means... a 1 to pass now, as long as it's not a critical trigger, means that these cards would be better used later or now. Like, either way, if it gets a critical trigger, I lose. Because if I was to PG this attack now, I wouldn't be able to use these Embrace Dragons to guard the next attack, because he'll gain that 15k. So either I hard guard now for a 1 to pass and I PG the next attack, or he gets a crit trigger and I lose anyways because I greeded and I discarded that heal trigger. So I think what the play is, I'll actually no guard here. If he gets a crit trigger, he gets a crit trigger. He does get the crit trigger, so 1 to pass would have still killed me anyways. I have to play on the over trigger. I have to play on the 5th or 6th damage heal trigger. 1, 2, and it doesn't happen. Bastion Prime, all of the rest of the Bastion Primes going into my damage zone. Over trigger stuck at the bottom there. Yeah, because I wouldn't have been able to. So that was definitely on me for greeding out, discarding that heal trigger. Maybe it was smarter to discard the Alton, but I was not expecting to get triple Bubetsu. Normally, Greedon, you only attack twice per turn, but with triple Bubetsu and all that counterblast that he had, he was able to get double Greedon. So that was very scary, and hopefully this next game we are able to go first. Alright, going into the third and final game. Hopefully we get to go first this time. And once again, we are going second. So, unfortunately, I'm unable to show you guys the power of Bastion going first. But it looks like we are going to be playing against Dragon Empire. And I do see the Sealed Blaze Dragon, which kind of indicates that we might be playing against Bavsagara. I'm not too well versed on Bavsagara, but I do know that the deck has a lot of offensive prowess. And so basically, a lot of it will be basically us two kind of bashing heads against each other and seeing who comes out on top. So our opponent is going to go ahead and start off by discarding to ride from the right deck, the Grade 1. Don't worry, my hand is weird as well. More importantly, I didn't get to go first. So he's going to discard the Spear to ride into the first one when placed. Gets the Soul Blast 1 and searches for one of the equips going into his hand. Search for deck for up to one Sealed Blaze Sword Privis or one Sealed Shield Sayanbu. So these are the deity arms. So basically, it makes his like front row kind of like very Vanguard centric, like in like the most like truest sense of it. Now, similarly to the last game against Greedon, I don't feel that my rear guards are very threatened against this deck. So I'm gonna go ahead and discard the Spirale here. I still have my 3 Grade 3s here, so I discard the Spirale to go into Fort, draw a card, and I'm just going to go ahead and swing right now. Hopefully I get a critical trigger, because that's how we win games, and that's why I play the 8 crits. I don't find the critical triggers, but I do find the Alden. He does get the defensive draw trigger, which is like very fortunate on his end of things. Kind of like alleviates the -1 from going first, but he does get the first twin drive, so a defensive draw, always good to see. He's going to go ahead and ride into Halibadra, and when plays, he is going to go ahead and pick up another one of the arms drops, basically the one that he discarded. Now, just like every other time I said before, it's hard for me to guard in the later stages of the game, so I'm going to guard while I can in the early stages. Over trigger to pass. He doesn't get the OT, but he does get the crit, so I'm very happy that I didn't get crit here, because that means that unless I was able to rip off an Alden from the top, I don't think I'd be able to make good use of it. So I'm going to go ahead and discard this extra copy of Spirale here. Actually, I'm 3 Spirales out. I might want to keep the Spirale, so I'm going to discard an Alden instead to go into Rooks. Last time I showed a Spirale off the drive check, so I'm going to show a Spirale and show a Spirale here. And off the top, find it. Not exactly what we want to see, finding that heal trigger. Like I said though, it is still a +1 to board, so we'll take... Not exactly the best time to see the over trigger. We don't even get to keep the 50k shield in hand. We don't even get to get the extra drive check. That was probably the worst time to actually check the over trigger. If we were able to find a Grade 3 off the top with that over trigger, I would have been very happy, because that means I'm able to like swing with a twin drive and hopefully dig into a lot of pieces, just make like building our hand that much easier. But with that over trigger out of the game plan, that's 2 less heals in our deck. The heal that we got off the top and the heal trigger that the over trigger actually provides if we get on the damage check. And like, based on like what this deck can do, like, I know that it's very aggressive. I need those defensives. Now, it's gonna ride into Bavsagara and get the shield and the shield here. Get the spear and the shield here, sorry. Now, both of these are on the Vanguard circle, so very big Vanguard circle. And on this attack, I think I'm gonna take it. Unironically, I am hoping for a crit here, so I can do... I can like kind of like get a good clapback using the Alden into Spirale attacks. Because the last game that happened, I wasn't able to get like a good turn off, so I'm gonna no guard here. A crit trigger, hopefully he puts it on the Vanguard, but he doesn't. And I lose one of my PGs. I'm not very happy about that either. Now, going into his Persona Ride turn, I think I'm gonna this time value the guards a bit more. So I'm gonna discard the Spirale to go into Bastion here. I'm gonna show off the Spirale, the Dragon, and the Pride to Protect to get a draw. Finding another Bastion Prime, not exactly what I want to see. And I think the stinky part about it is that I actually kind of regret calling the Spirale down. Discarding the Spirale, because now I don't have 2 Grade 3 units to attack with. I could actually just go Spirale and 1 attack. Yeah, I might do that. So I'm just gonna go Spirale attack, And then Bastion, hopefully find a grade 3 just to get that draw off this Spirale here. We're gonna go Bastion. We find the heal trigger, power to Spirale, and we find a grade 3, so that's good to see at least. We're gonna use Bastion skill now. This Bastion Prime is not doing too much for us, and we still have a bunch of other Bastions in deck, so I'm gonna discard the Bastion, restand the Spirale, it gains 10, let's Soul Blast 2, draw a card, hopefully draw into a PG. Draw trigger is fine as well, it's an extra shield, but I would have loved to defensively trigger that. Gonna go ahead and hit the Spirale. He does get the defensive heal. Not exactly what I want to see, considering I'm trying to go for like a big turn on the next turn as well. Now what's very odd to see is I actually don't have very good grade 3 call targets off of Alden. So I feel like I'm actually going to be taking a lot of this and praying for something good off the top. Ideally, Alden call Alden to hopefully find something, or Alden call Refluke, and then just basically play off of that kind of board, call down the Embrace Dragon. It doesn't make magic numbers, but it still acts as like as a 15, it'll still act as an 8k booster at least, rather than a 10k booster. So with that, hopefully it works. So he's gonna go ahead and use that. I'm gonna lose my Spirale, which is fine. I'm gonna lose, so maybe it was a good thing that I only attacked with the Spirale once, because that next attack wouldn't have done too much. It looks like he's gonna attack me anyways. I'm gonna go ahead. Oh, I don't have a PG. This is a easy no guard. I will take this on the chin, and hopefully he doesn't get the over trigger. Because if he gets the over trigger, it's GG. So he finds a grade 1 and the Trick Moon. First damage, second damage. Did not find any defensive trigger, so that's gonna be very painful. This is gonna be 26, which will be easily guarded by a 15 here. And on the next attack, I am actually going to give... I need 20k shield, so let's go ahead and give 2 of these draw triggers, which gets us to the 20k shield. Keeping the Embrace Dragon in hand, because worst comes to worst, it is a grade 3, I can call off Alden. Luckily I do find the Refluke, so that's kind of poggy woggies. I'm going to go ahead and ride into the Bastion Prime here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's a lot of hand to chew through. I'm going to call down the Alden Counterblast 2, Soul Blasting 1. Call down the Refluke, draw 2. Finds another Alden, that's good to see. Now, on the off chance that I find PGs, I don't have any grade 3 rearguards to boost with at the moment. So I will keep these in hand, so that way I can use them as like PG fodder. If I was able to keep the Spirale, sure. If I was able to get an extra Counterblast, sure. But I did not know that I would draw into an Alden, so I'm not gonna like play on like possibilities. I'll just play on what I see at the moment. So off of Bastion Prime skill, all of our front row units will gain that 2k. And let's just go into attacks. We do get triple drive here, so hopefully we do find some triggers. Get a heal trigger to get us out of 3 damage. These are also very big units, so I'm actually tempted to attack them as well. He does have the 2 soul needed. When this hits, that's a bit scary. This is also very large and in charge. So, but this is also on play. On play, 18k attacker. If there is a Persona Ride, becomes a 28k attacker. I just think we go to face. Actually, my first attack could go to rear. Rear, face. That way I have my heal triggers live. My 2 heal triggers left in deck live. So that way I'm able to like tank another attack from Bavsagara here. There's a few ways to take this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But like the chances of finding like a new attack to replace all of these is like very easy. So I think, yeah. I think regardless, I want to play on that... No, play to win. I'm going to attack through the Vanguard here. That gets the guard out. Alden's going to gain that 5k on attack here. It loses the 5k after it restands though, so I'm just going to give it the 5k naturally. So 20k to the opponent's Vanguard. This draws out that guard. And then we're going to swing with Bastion Prime here. Hopefully find a grade 3. Hopefully find a couple of Embrace Dragons will be really nice as well. Now the Embrace Dragon becomes a 20k shield. If I have 4 more cards in the drop, gains 5, then it has 8 or more. I have a lot of cards in the drop, so that's a really big shield. So that is 28k shield. This is Oh, gets another one of the Fushimachi Madoka. So very large shields here. This becomes a 3 to pass. On a 3 drive, probably unlikely to happen. I'm also on my over trigger, so not exactly fond about that. Okay, I get my Aegis Mare, so that's really good to see. I find a heal trigger as well, very good to see. Now the problem is if I don't find a grade 3 or greater. Luckily I do, so that is also good to see. So because I was able to find that, I'm able to Soul Blast the Bastion in my soul to go ahead and restand my front row, and they will gain 10k. That was a bit scary. I'm happy to find this Bastion Prime as well, because that means if we are able to live next turn, we are able to go for another big Bastion Prime turn. We do have another Alden, but we don't have anything to call off of it, so I might be keeping the Embrace Dragon in hand once again. Let's go ahead into attacks here. 35, 35, both the same thing, so we're gonna go ahead and 35 to the Vanguard here. Hopefully get a free damage in. If not, we can push them to 5 damage for our big push next turn. Now, what I am scared of is that I wish I could keep the Alden, that way I could use Pride to Protect, but like I said, I guess I was wrong. There is a lot of retire here. Like, it literally just says retire the front row. I should have known, and I guess this means that because I'm replacing my front row a lot, Pride to Protect doesn't have a lot of value. So I might use, just like I said, Aegis Mare to discard the Pride to Protect to get that extra guard. And he's going to go ahead and re-equip with the Blaze Sword. When the unit armed with this card attacks, gains 10k. At the end of the battle, if your damage zone has Counter Blast, put this into drop, choose one of your opponent's Vanguard, and deal 1 damage. So this is, I'm very much looking to PG this attack, because if I'm going to take a damage anyways, it is probably like very important to gain that extra bonus. Calls down the Brachial Force again and calls down the Fushimachi Madoka. So he's got the full board set up and the Persona Ride as well. Very, very strong. Gonna go ahead and Soul Blast 2 to wipe my front row and gain that crit. I'm definitely gonna guard this. If he has the over trigger, he has the over trigger. Let's go ahead and throw down the PG. We're gonna discard that Pride to Protect. Just like I said, not very useful in this matchup. Does find the heal trigger, which I'm not too happy about. I was hoping to like just end the game. And with the skill here, actually not opting to use the skill, this has the ability to retire one of our rear guards. How important is this to us? That extra, not that important, I don't think. Let me reconsider this. Because he also gets to draw a card, and drawing on a card is bad. I don't want him to be able to draw into more cards. So I will actually opt to guard this attack. This way I'm able to keep my booster on the board, and I'll take this attack. This gives me the 2 Counter Blasts to play with. Hopefully off this I find a really cool grade 3. Refluke is cool. We'll take the Refluke. Let's go ahead and call down the... Do I have any soul? I don't have soul, so I have to... Oh, this is stinky. This is kind of stinky. If I want the draw 2 off of Alden, I need to rewrite off of Bastion Prime. But then I'm not guaranteed to find a Bastion. I'm out 1, 2 Bastions already, 3 Bastions. Draw 2, drive 3. I mean, it is favor that I do find at least 1 Bastion name. I think it's worth it. I'm playing to win. I'm not playing to not lose. Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1. Call down the Refluke. Draw 2. Did not find the Bastion, but I think that's fine. Actually, is this my final turn? Is this my final turn? Could I go for a lethal push here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We do note he has a heal in hand, so we know 20k shield at least. At the very least, we are going to be able to at least push our opponent to near death. Let's go for it. I'm not sure if this is right, but I'm going to go for it. So the game's not updated, but these things only have 12k, so they're unable to get to that magic number. But in either case, I'm going for like a lethal push here. So I'm going to start with 27, which is guardable by a trigger, which is the difference between 27 and 28. That 1k power makes such a huge difference. But Fushimachi Madoka, this is the last one, I believe. Unless he has a way of recycling it, which maybe he does? So I thought that he guarded with 2 Fushimachi Madokas before. Unless there's like a cool way that he's able to do it. So Soul Charge 1 and choose a college rear, so probably call the Fushimachi out. Let's go ahead and swing with the Alden here, gaining that 5k buff. This one probably goes in. Then we have Bastion Prime to be able to attack. Hopefully we find a Bastion. Find a Bastion Prime, and we are bang chilling. If not, we might have just thrown the game by discarding 20k. We discarded a lot of shield here, but in return we kept our PG, which, like, I guess in this kind of sense makes it like very possible for us to guard, because once we have low cards in hand, the Aegis Mirror just becomes that much more valuable to guard with, right? In either case, we're gonna go ahead and swing the Bastion Prime, triple drive. What is our opponent gonna do? Like, if the no guard here, this is why I also play those extra crits in the deck, because crits win games. Oh, and see, I've got the bluff going as well. Unsure if that Bastion is his hand. Not sure if this card is a Bastion. Let's see what our opponent chooses to do, because these are going to come out swinging very large if I do find that Bastion to discard off for Bastion Prime. And I think that is one of the weaknesses of Bastion Prime, is how specific it is that you need to literally have that Bastion in soul, have the Bastion in hand, and is actually going to call down all of these cards here. 2 to pass. First is a crit. At this 2 to pass point, I know he still has a heal in hand, which means he's able to guard. Okay, I actually need to think here. I'm out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 with the overtrigger. So I have a 1 in 3 chance now of finding another trigger. I'm out 1 Bastion Prime, 2, 3, 4. I'm out 4 Bastions out of 8. So I have 4 Bastions in 15 versus 3 triggers in 15. The chances of me finding a Bastion is higher than the chances of me finding a trigger. Because of that, I'm going to play to the play that has the highest chance of winning, and that is to give it to Alden. Unfortunately, we did not find the Bastion, so that ends our turn, and that's pretty much it. I might have just tossed the game there. And I think that is, like I said, the biggest weakness of this deck is that you still need to get those Bastions in hand. Like this Bastion, I had to rewrite to get the extra soul for Alden. That way I was able to get the extra hand to play the Pride to Protect. If I was able to get the Bastion in hand, I think that was a game. The crit, I do have 35k shield here. So 35k shield, this has a crit. So I still need to guard this attack, but this attack is really fucking big. I lose my front row here as well, and I'm not exactly jazzed about that. Use a crit, that was the Soul Blast too. Was it Persona Ride? I'm not sure. It doesn't look like it was Persona Ride, so it might be actually easier to boost this, but the Trick Move boosting is like very, very scary. Now, we don't have the sword anymore, so I could no guard, and if they don't get a crit trigger, makes it very good for us. He's actually gonna go ahead and attack with the rear first. I think I'm happy to see that, because that means I can use Embrace to act as a 20k shield. And then if he goes into the Bavsagara attack now. Oh, this is very good for us. Okay, we can guard with this. In the Bavsagara attack, I can just go ahead and use this free PG. Gets the draw trigger. Gets another Fushimachi Madoka. Okay. Going back to your turn, we find the Bastion. Okay. This could be huge for us. Because we have the Bastion in hand now, it's pretty much guaranteed. I can push the Embrace Dragon up again, bump them back down to 2. But then all of our units gain that buff. So I'm going to go ahead and swing easy 5-2 guard. An easy 5-2 guard. Then I'm going to swing boosting for 32k to the Vanguard. Against the defensive, I'm not too jazzed about because it just makes guarding this initial attack easier. But honestly, as long as we find a grade 3, everything else should hit. This becomes a 2 to pass here. Bastion Prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I did not see a PG in hand, but I did see that grade 1 that gains a lot of shield. So with these 2 cards down, this is 25k shield, 48, 3 pass. But I'm not looking for triggers. I'm looking to be able to restand my board and get that big 10k buff. First trigger, we do find that grade 3. We find another grade 3. We find a PG as well. So unfortunately not able to find a trigger, but we do have the Bastion to go ahead and restand our board. Everything here against that 10k. If I was really hoping to find a trigger, because that way I can make the Embrace Dragon a bit more hard to guard. Because if he does have the PG here, it just spells doom for us. That's a really big guard, and here's a really big attack. Do you have the PG? Oh, he has the over trigger. Okay, so I don't have to deal with the over trigger anymore. That is good to see. But I'm running low on resources. I don't have any more Bastions to really attack with. Now, there's no more soul left on the Bavsagara to gain the crit, nor retire my front row. So that's also very good to see. So this is pretty much what I'd like to call a game of attrition. This was probably the most game of attrition I've ever dealt with. I am going to... let the Alden die. I lose to 2 crits. I see 1 out. I see 2 out. 3 out, 4 out. 5 out, 6 out. I see 6 crits out, and I only ever lose to a double crit. So I no guard here. There's that crit. 1 damage, 2 damage. We get the defensive here. It's important for me to protect this, so I'm actually going to go ahead and give the mark power to Embrace Dragon. And on the last attack, I will then guard using the... this is hard. Refluke gives an extra 10k, which gets doubly used, so... but Spirale is also really good. I think we're going to discard the Refluke. Off the top, we find another Refluke. I guess it's just time to go then. We're gonna call the Spirale down. We're gonna call the Refluke down, and our front row gains that 2k. Spirale effect in the back row will give my Embrace Dragon an extra 5k here, and we just go to town. Hopefully not a 6 damage trigger. We're gonna get a big boost here, going 27. This is 15k to guard. We get that 15k out of hand. This is 32. This is 20k to guard. If he takes any damage, it would be here because it would make the Bastion Prime attack that much easier to guard. Throws down the PG. Now, quick Bastion count again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this deck of 6, half of them are Bastion cards. I should be able to get the restand off here. Let's attack. 20 to the Vanguard. Finds another PG here. That is a free PG. We find the crit. I'm going to give the power here. Critical to the bigger one. Second, we find the Bastion, and we find a heal as well. So, with Bastion Prime's effect, we're going to go ahead and discard that Bastion we found, and all of our units gain 10k. This is going to be one really big attack with the crit. I'm going to swing with this one first, just in case of that 6 damage shield trigger. GG. Holy moly, that was a great game. And that about sums up the video. Let's go over the strengths and weaknesses of Bastion Prime. Firstly, the strengths. 1. The deck has a lot of hand advantage. Alden is a powerhouse of a card and enables a lot of aggressive options that you are looking towards while playing Bastion Prime. He's your best advantage engine, he's your best attacker, and a lot of other decks would kill for a card like Alden. Sparare as well is a very much welcome new card. Being able to refund the discard cost that Bastion has for that extra attack, as stated before, between Alden and Sparare, you're drawing a lot of cards on that first turn, and hopefully either finding big combo pieces, extra Bastions, and extra shield value to get you into the later stages of the game. 2. The power lines in this deck is massive. The magic number to hit in this deck is either 28k or 33k, and this deck does it very well. With ample amounts of 10k buffs between Bastion, Bastion Prime, and Real Fluke, it does it easily. We saw how devastating it was to our opponent's hand when we were able to enable our boosters as well, getting both attacks to ask for a minimum of 2 cards each time. Then the weaknesses. 1. Both Bastion and Bastion Prime are heavily RNG gated. We saw an example where I played towards finding the Bastion and it didn't pay off. Bastion Prime being hyper-specific towards having to discard or Soul Blast Bastion names means that unlike some of the other Grade 4 decks, we're still super pigeonholed into playing the old Bastion Grade 3 outside of our ride line, which eats up a lot into our deck slots that could be either used for other stronger options. Bastion Grade 3 himself, hoping to find a Grade 3 in only a twin drive now that we introduced Grade 4s as well, isn't exactly what I call guaranteed either, and is why our deck is heavily skewed towards Grade 3s. Let's not forget that the free plus off of riding over Fort isn't guaranteed either, and the quality of it is up to chance. 2. The deck is fragile. As we've opted to run a more offensive trigger lineup, we don't have access to the safety that the 20k shield front triggers provide, and as such, we are more susceptible to not being able to guard. Not only that, because our main deck is mainly composed of Grade 3 units that don't have shield value outside of Embrace Dragon, our average shield is just much less than that of an average deck, which led me to do a lot of those early guards you saw me in the video. That being said, to conclude, Bastion Prime is incredibly fun and rewarding to play, since despite it being so simple, there's a lot of micro decisions you have to make as the pilot to ensure what is the path to take it to victory, and I hope that in this video I showed you a prime example as to what kind of decisions one has to make to be able to get to that big and juicy 70k Alden Sparare column. In any case, thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I frequently stream over on my Twitch channel at It's Toku TV, and it would mean the world to me to see you hang out there too. This has been Toku from Yellowcard Vanguard. Toku out.